Clara Wynne was barely 21, but her life had already been carved into scars. And on this freezing night, her final breaths trembled beneath the rough, merciless hands of her stepfather, Marlon Briggs. His rotting wooden house sat alone in the middle of endless fields where no neighbor would hear a scream, and even if they did, the wind would swallow it long before it reached human ears. Inside the dim shack, Marlon loomed over her like a shadow ripped straight out of hell. His breath stank of cheap liquor, his eyes bloodshot, wild, and burning with something darker than anger, desperation. The debt collector, Hector Mullins, had pushed him to the brink. Marlon had nothing left but rage, fear, and one twisted idea: hand Clara over to pay his debt. He never imagined the small, fragile girl would dare resist. But Clara, trembling and bruised, lifted her chin with the last ounce of strength in her bones. "I am not something you can sell," she rasped. Those simple words poured fuel over the fire already consuming Marlon's sanity. He snapped. Marlon slammed her onto the dirt-stained floor. Dust rose around them as his boots struck her ribs, her shoulder, her side. Every stomp shook the ground like thunder. Clara curled inward, trying to shield what little life she had left, tears streaking silently down her dirt-streaked face. Then, in a drunken frenzy, Marlon dragged her outside by the arm. The cold hit her like the slap of a frozen hand. Above them towered the old oak tree, thick, ancient, and silent, as if it had watched countless sins unfold under its branches. "It's over for you," Marlon snarled, his voice low and shaking. "Useless thing." He looped a rope around her neck. Clara clawed weakly at his hands, her breath breaking apart in terrified gasps. The night sky swayed above her. Then, the stool kicked out from under her feet. Clara's body jerked upward, weight crashing against the rope. Her legs thrashed helplessly as the world blurred into darkness. She tried to scream, but the rope strangled every sound, every breath, every hope. Her vision dimmed. And then it began to fade entirely. But far down the long dirt road that cut through the Briggs property, a lone rider was galloping toward the house. The moon outlined him against the fields, Elias Crawford, a rancher in his early 50s with calm, weathered eyes and a heart that had never learned how to look away from another's suffering. He wasn't expecting anything unusual on his way home. Until he saw her. A body hanging from the oak tree, swaying like a broken whisper against the moonlight. Elias pulled the reins so sharply his horse reared with a terrified cry. He leapt off before the animal even settled and sprinted toward the tree. "My God," he breathed. Clara hung limp, her legs a dark shade of purple, her toes twitching from fading instinct. Her eyes were half closed, her neck twisted at a sickening angle. The rope dug a deep, raw ring into her flesh. Elias reached up, lifting her weight with trembling arms to loosen the choke. "Hold on, child, please hold on." With one swift motion, he drew his knife from his belt and sliced the rope. Clara fell straight into his arms. She was limp, cold, barely breathing. Elias pressed his ear near her mouth. A faint breath stirred against his skin, thin and fragile as mist. Relief hit him so hard his knees nearly buckled. "Good, good. Stay with me." Without hesitation, he carried her to his horse, keeping her wrapped tightly in his arms to warm her shivering body. As the horse surged forward, Clara's eyelids fluttered. "Don't, let them take me back," she whispered, voice raw and ghost-thin. "They won't," Elias said, his voice breaking into steel. "No one will ever lay a hand on you again." Moonlight brushed her bruised face, showing streaks of dried blood and the brutal rope mark across her throat. Elias clenched his jaw. He had seen cruelty before, but never anything this monstrous. When they reached his ranch, he carried her inside and laid her near the fireplace. He fetched an old shirt from the wardrobe and draped it over her trembling shoulders. With gentle hands, he pressed a cool cloth to her swollen neck. Clara watched the flickering fire with slowly widening eyes. "You're safe now," Elias said softly. "I won't let anyone take you." Outside, the wind howled through the fields, but neither of them knew that eyes were already watching the ranch from the shadows. The room inside was warm, lit only by firelight. Clara sat curled on the chair, wrapped in Elias's oversized shirt. It hung down her slender frame, hiding how thin she truly was. Her hands shook as she held the tea Elias offered. "No one here is going to hurt you for holding a cup of tea," he assured her gently. A single tear slipped down Clara's cheek. She wasn't used to kindness. After a long moment, she whispered, "Why did you save me?" Elias met her eyes. "Because someone needed to." But the peace didn't last. Hours later, a strange sound echoed outside, branches cracking under heavy steps. Elias grew still. That wasn't an animal. Someone was nearby. He parted the curtain and saw fresh horse tracks in the damp soil. Perfectly shaped. Recently made. Someone had arrived. Or someone was watching. Clara's breath hitched. "Marlon," she whispered. Elias grabbed his rifle from the wall. "Stay inside." But Clara pulled at his sleeve. "If he finds me, he will kill you too." Elias set a hand on her shoulder. "You won't face him alone anymore." The wind swept through the yard, carrying cold ash and tension. Elias scanned the tree line, muscles coiled tight. A twig snapped. His rifle rose instantly. Silence. And then, hoofbeats thundered across the ground. Torches flared behind the pine trees, glowing like the eyes of predators stalking their prey. They had come. Marlon Briggs rode in front, drunk, shaking, and furious. Hector Mullins and his armed men trailed behind, torches blazing. "Clara!" Marlon roared. "You think you can run from me?" Elias stepped forward, rifle raised. The firelight reflected off his steady eyes. "That girl doesn't belong to anyone," he said. Hector chuckled. "Hand her over, Crawford. She's payment." "That's all." "No," Elias replied calmly. "She is a human being." Marlon dismounted, stumbling like a rabid animal. "Get out of my way, old man. She's mine." Elias lifted the rifle. "There's only one thing I see belonging to anyone tonight, your punishment." Marlon lunged. Boom! The shot hit the dirt inches from Marlon's feet, knocking him backward. "That was your warning," Elias said coldly. Hector's men charged. Elias moved fast, faster than Clara imagined a wounded man could. Boom! One man dropped with a wounded arm. Another rushed him, but Elias slammed the butt of his rifle into his jaw. A third crept behind Elias, knife glinting in the fire. Clara saw the danger through the window. "Elias, behind you." He turned just in time. The blade sliced his arm, blood pouring down. Clara bolted out the door, but before she reached him, a siren screamed across the fields. Sheriff Nolan Graves and a dozen armed men surged over the hill. "Drop your weapons." Graves shouted. Marlon and Mullins froze as the sheriff's men surrounded them. They were caught. Graves approached Elias. "You all right?" "I'm still standing," Elias said through a tight breath. Clara clung to his arm, her eyes full of fear, then hope. Marlon raged, screaming curses, but Graves silenced him with a punch to the stomach. "She doesn't belong to you," the sheriff growled. "And tonight you sleep in a cell." One by one, Mullins's men were tied up. Their torches were extinguished. The firelight faded from the ranchyard as justice finally arrived. Clara stayed close to Elias, her trembling hand wrapped around the sleeve of his shirt. He squeezed gently back. The nightmare was over. The dawn that followed was the first Clara had seen in years without fear choking her chest. The birds sang on the roof, the breeze brushed against her cheeks, and the world felt, for once, gentle. Elias walked onto the porch, his arm bandaged. He stood beside her quietly until she finally asked. "Why did you help me? I bring nothing but trouble." Elias looked at her, eyes soft. "You deserve a good life, Clara. Everyone does." She lowered her head. And for the first time, she didn't flinch when he placed his hand on hers. "You can stay here," he said. "For as long as you wish." Later, Sheriff Graves returned with news. "Marlon Briggs and the Mullins gang are going to prison. They won't ever lay a hand on you again." Clara felt her knees weaken with relief. Graves nodded toward Elias. "You're safe here, if this is where you want to be." Clara smiled softly. "I want to stay. I want to start over." Elias smiled too, quiet, warm, and full of promise. "Then I'll teach you everything," he said. "How to live out here. How to heal." Clara stepped onto the porch as evening fell. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of tomorrow. Her new life had just begun.